Do you guys have conversations about trying to shift the public perception of having this left-wing bias and maybe possibly addressing it?
Yeah.
Well,
All
that's
the
what they're
time.
doing right now, right?
Yeah. I mean, I went on the Sean Hannity show. We
How was that?
We brought ourselves before. It was
Did you bring a lot of sunlight?
It was short, and it was short, and there weren't a lot of really tough questions, and that
That's
was the
the
feedback
problem
as
with
well.
those-
And
Yeah.
I get it. Like, look, again, I'm from Missouri. My dad is a Republican. He listened to Hannity. He listened to Rush Limbaugh. My mom was a Democrat, and I feel extremely fortunate that I was able to first see that spectrum, but also feel safe enough to express my own point of view. But when I go on someone like Hannity, I'm not talking to Hannity. I'm talking to the people like my dad who listen to him.
Right.
And I want to get across how we think, and also that our thinking evolves. And here's the challenges we're seeing, and like this is our intent. This is what we're trying to protect, and we're going to make some mistakes along the way, and we're going to admit to them. We didn't admit to them in the past. We admitted to a lot more over the past 3 years. But I don't know any other way to address some of these issues. It all goes back to trust. Like one of our core operating principles is earning trust. How do we earn more trust? And there are people in the world who do not trust us at all, and there are some people who trust us a little bit more. But this is the thing that we want to measure. This the thing that we want to get better at.
I saw you had a conversation with, I think, Katie Herzog. No. Who was it? That was the wrong person. You had a Twitter conversation with
Kara
Swisher.
Yeah.
Wow, wrong person, but someone just got a shout out. I see that the left goes at you in the opposite direction. They want more. They want more banning. They want more, restrictions.
Yeah.
And then it looks like the right is saying less, right?
Yeah.
So, I mean, in terms of solving the
Can
problem,
you tell us what that conversation was about?
do you want to summarize? Because the thing I was pointing out specifically was that you were being asked to do more in
Yeah.
terms of controlling.
Well, it wasn't just more, but to be a lot more specific about what actions we've taken to promote more health on the platform. Like what products did we change? What policies did we introduce in the past 2 years? So she was asking questions. Every question she asked, she wanted me to be a lot more specific. And some of these things have something that is very specific. Some are directional right now because like we have to prioritize the direction, and I talked about we've decided that physical safety is going to be a priority for us, and to us that means like being a whole lot more proactive around things like doxing.
So, two suggestions, I guess. I'm not going to imply that you have unlimited funding, but we did mention the peer review.
We don't.
Right. And you had you mentioned earlier layoffs and retraction, peer review, which we mentioned. But have you just considered opening an office, even a small one, for trust and safety in an area that's not predominantly blue, so that at least you have, you can have some pushback? And what does learn to code mean? And then they could tell you.
Absolutely. So that's great feedback. And just so you know, the trust and safety team is also a global team, and the enforcement team is a global team. So it's not like people from California who are looking at everything, making decisions. They're global. Now, I hear your point about who trains them and the materials they have and all of that. And we have to think about that. And that's one thing that Jack has really been pushing us to think about is how do we decentralize our workforce? Because
out of San Francisco.
Out of San Francisco in particular. So this is something he's very focused on.
What about publishing evidence of wrongdoing in a banning? So when people say, what did Alex Jones really do? Maybe a lot of people didn't realize what you saw. And again, it's an issue of trust.
Yeah, I love this, Tim. I'm a lawyer, so by training, we're thinking of doing something we call case studies, but essentially this is our case law. This is what we use. And so high profile cases people ask us about, to actually publish this so that we can go through, tweet by tweet just like this, because I think a lot of people just don't understand and they don't believe us when we're saying these things. So to put that out there so people can see. And again, they may disagree with the calls that we're making, but we at least want them to see why we're making these calls.
I think.
And that I do want to do. I want to at least start that by the end of this year.
So I think, ultimately my main criticism stands, and I don't see a solution to, in that Twitter is an unelected, unaccountable, as far as I'm concerned, when it comes to public discourse. You have rules that are very clearly at odds, as we discussed. I don't see a solution to that. And I think, in my opinion, we can have this kind of we've toned things down. We've had some interesting conversations. But ultimately, unless you're willing to allow people to just speak entirely freely, you are we have an unelected group with a near monopoly on public discourse in many capacities. And I understand it's not everything. Reddit is big, too. And it's, what I see is you are going to dictate policy whether you realize it or not. and that's going to terrify people, and it's going to make violence happen. It's going to make things worse. You know, I hate bringing up this example on the rule for misgendering because I understand it and I can agree with it to a certain extent. And I have nothing but respect for the trans community, but I also recognize we've seen an escalation in street violence. We see a continually disenfranchised large faction of individuals in this country. We then see only one of those factions banned. We then see a massive multinational billion-dollar corporation with foreign investors, and it looks to me like if foreign governments are trying to manipulate us, I don't see a direct solution to that problem. That you do have political views, you do enforce them, and that means that Americans who are abiding by American rule are being excised from political discourse, and that's the future. That's it.
Yeah, we do have views on the approach, and again, we ground this in creating as much opportunity as possible for the largest number of people.
Right.
That's where it starts, and where we are today will certainly evolve. But that is what we are trying to base our rules and judgments. Not, and I get that that's an ideology. I completely understand it. But we also have to be free to experiment with solutions and experiment with evolving policy and putting something out there that might look right at the time and evolving. I'm not saying this is it, but we look to research, we look to our experience and data on the platform, and we make a call. And if we get it wrong, we're going to admit it, and we're going to evolve it.
But I guess do you understand my point?
I understand the point.
That there are American citizens abiding by the law who have a right to speak and be involved in public discourse that you have decided aren't allowed to.
Yeah, and I think we've discussed we don't see that as a win. We see that as not promoting health ultimately over time.
Right.
But what is your priority? Do you have it prioritized in terms of what you guys would like to change?
I think Jack has said it a couple times, but the first thing we're going to do is prioritize people's physical safety, because that's got to be understanding.
You already have done that pretty much, right?
No.
Need to do that more?
We've
We need to.
prioritized it.
Okay.
But we haven't
We're
actually
doing the work.
succeeded.
I don't
Okay.
think companies like ours make the link enough
But what is your
between
main-
online and offline ramifications.
What's the main criticism? What's the main criticism, you guys? Is it censorship that you guys experience? Is it censorship? Is it banning? What is it? What
depends on
do
who
you get
you
the
ask.
most?
It depends on who you
Every
ask.
single person has a different criticism, so I don't think there's a universal opinion.
I mean, you just painted the picture.
Right.
Between, the left end
But
of the spectrum is asking for more.
Sure.
And the right is asking for less. That's very simplified just for this country.
Mm-hmm.
But at a high level, yeah, that's consistent.
I mean, my opinion would be, as much as I don't like a lot of what people say about me, what they do, the rules you've enforced on Twitter have done nothing to stop harassment towards me or anyone else. Right? I swear to God, my Twitter, my Reddit is probably 50 messages from various far left and left wing subreddits lying about me, calling me horrible names, quote tweeting me, and these people are blocked. Right? And I never used to block people because I thought it was silly because they can get around it anyway. But I decided to at one point because out of sight, out of mind. If they see my tweets less, they'll probably interact with me less. But they do this, and they lie about what I believe, they lie about what I stand for, and they're trying to destroy everything about me. And they do this to other people. I recognize that. So ultimately I say, well, what can you do? It's going to happen on one of these platforms. The internet is a thing. As they say on the internet, welcome to the internet. So, to me, I see Twitter trying to enforce all these rules to maximize good, and all you end up doing is stripping people from the platform, putting them in dark corners of the web where they get worse, and then you don't actually solve the harassment problem.
Reddit's
I
hardly
am
a
worried
dark
about that.
corner of the web, right? Reddit's
No, I'm not
pretty
talking.
fucking huge.
But there are dark corners of Reddit. There are
Right.
alternatives. I mean, the internet isn't going to go away, and people have found alternatives